The Sydney Opera House, white beaches and the outback, right? That's what people think when planning a trip to Australia. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what about the parts that no one tells you about? I'm currently on a massive road trip covering half of Australia's coastline. And in this video, I'll leave Western Australia behind and I'll take you along my adventures in the state of South Australia. A vast stretch of land that offers so much to see and do, but somehow never shows up on anyone's Australia travel itinerary. So take along and let's explore South Australia together.
Morning everyone, it's about 6 o'clock and I'm just outside of Norseman. I haven't really started the whole Nullarbor thing yesterday. I only drove from Esperance to Norseman. And I'm going to do, a big stretch of the Nullarbor, probably the biggest one today. I'm going all the way to Eucla and sleeping at Bunder Cliffs and also checking out Bunder Cliffs. And it's about 7 hours to go and I hope I pass this whole Nullarbor straight sign. I'm pretty sure I will. And then on the road. Something just happened that I think never happened to me before in my life, and that is I crossed onto a different time zone on land, not on a plane where these things usually just happen, of course, when you have an intercontinental flight or whatever. But there was this sign on the road and it said that we had to advance the clocks now 45 minutes because we just entered a different time zone. Anyways, it's still about 100 kilometers or so to Mandurah. And this is where we're probably going to fuel up just a little bit and then on to Bunder Cliffs to get stunned by apparently the amazing scenery that they offer. Alright, this is it. This is the border over from Western Australia to South Australia. So for the first time since I got to Perth, I'm leaving Western Australia. It feels special. I don't know why, but I kind of just feel special.
And then, before even hitting the Nullarbor plain, it was time to get blown away by the sight of the Bunder Cliffs.
Wow! Look at this! It's massive!
Also known as Nullarbor Cliffs, the Bunder Cliffs extend over 210 kilometers from the east of Western Australia all the way to the western parts of South Australia. With some parts being as high as 120 meters, they are an absolute highlight on this rather monotonous drive along the Erie Highway. Since I still had a lot of driving ahead of me, I abandoned the Bunder Cliffs and made my way east to potentially the most famous sign in South Australia.
That's it! The Nullarbor plain. I was waiting for that sign for so long. So it's only about 3 hours to Ceduna, which for me means the next step into civilization again because it has cheap fuel prices, though I think I can't get around fueling up just a little bit. Anyways, so cool! Nullarbor, finally, we made it pretty much.
Before even getting to Ceduna, I stopped by Lake McDonnell as it stuns you with its incredible colors, though most of its beauty can only be seen with a drone or, if you got one handy, a helicopter. After a quick stop in Ceduna, I made my way south along the Erie Peninsula's coast, passing Smoky Bay on my way to the rock pools of Edwards Bay, which on Google looked like a place I didn't want to miss.
Oh, this looks pretty cool. Look at this. So, I think I found one of the rock pools. That looks indeed kind of inviting. Also, it's got this like deep kind of trench in there, so I reckon you can probably literally just like jump in from here into that water. There was one thing that I just witnessed and I couldn't get it on camera, and that was really cool, and I've never seen it before. So I've seen a couple of really big kind of shell fragments on here, and I thought it was probably people just like taking them out of the water and then cracking them up to have bait or something. Though what just happened, I saw this big ass seagull over there. So here you can see it. This is what the seagull just dropped, And it's actually not a shell, it's a crab. This seagull got a crab somewhere, and in order to eat it, it cracked it open by throwing it down onto the ground from like 10-15 meters. I mean, that's cool. That's David Attenborough shit. That's so nice.
While I enjoyed watching the seagulls, the fly situation got unbearable, so I decided to move on towards Streaky Bay, which is the cutest little fishing/tourist town with some of the calmest water I had seen in a long while. After a quick little stroll, I headed further to check the Yarnabee sand dunes, and oh my god, there's just something about being the only one in an ocean of sand. After another night on a free camp along the road, I was ready for whatever the next day would surprise me with.
So next one of almost free activities, because you've got an honesty box and it's only $2 to get in, is Murphy's Haystack. Just about a 30 minutes drive from the sand dunes that we've been seeing at Streaky Bay, you find Murphy's Haystack, which sounds like an haystack, but it's not. It's actually a bunch of huge monolithic rocks in the middle of huge plain fields. And we're of course going to check them out and see if we can climb up and definitely get the drone up. So let's check out Murphy's Haystack.
Also called Inselbergs, the rocks at Murphy's Haystack are the remains of granite structures formed by thousands of years of erosion. They got their names from travelers who passed the formation and mistook the rocks for enormous amounts of hay. Since off the beaten path, chances are good you will be the only run around to take in the special atmosphere that these rocky giants radiate.
Just about 30 minutes or 40 minutes drive from Murphy's Haystack now in Venus Bay. And I gotta say, this place reminds me so much of Exmouth because everything is laid out for fishing. They have a big jetty and they have a fish cleaning station down there. And I was just down there and watched a guy feeding a lot of pelicans, really needy pelicans. And what I'm doing now is I'm doing a walk trail, which is only about 1 kilometer or so not too long, along this like kind of head here. And just look at the beautiful colors of the ocean and everything else.
Venus Bay seemed to me like a sleepy little fishing village that in the off-season doesn't offer all too much. The walk along the little peninsula, however, was worth a stop, and I reckon if you have the money to do a fishing charter here, it must be an absolute blast. To end the day, I gave the Woolshed Cave a little look. Certainly an interesting place, but since daylight started fading already, I wanted to make my way down towards Port Lincoln before nightfall. On the way, I got to enjoy not only colder temperatures, but also a much appreciated change of scenery, leaving the drier parts of the previous days behind and indulging in the lush green that awaited me.
So good morning everyone, it's another day in South Australia and I'm currently on a campground probably about 150-ish kilometers from Port Lincoln. That's where I'm headed to today because I just need a couple of days in a bigger city where I can stock up on groceries, but also that has a public library where I can put all my batteries on charge, my laptop on charge, do some admin stuff for the upcoming weeks and months. But enough of that, let's pack up the car and off we go to Port Lincoln.
I ended up staying 3 nights in Port Lincoln, even though the city doesn't offer all too much for tourists. Admin work in the library though, and a trip to the quaint little town of Coffin Bay to do the oyster trail walk through town and to have my very first oysters in my life though kept me busy. But at some point I felt the need to move on, so I jumped in the car, left the Erie Peninsula behind and headed north towards much warmer and drier parts of South Australia again.
It is another day in Southern Australia and I left the Erie Peninsula behind and I'm currently in the Mount Remarkable National Park. And I gotta say one thing, I'm only probably about 200 kilometers north of Port Lincoln, but in Port Lincoln temperatures at night were probably 13-14 degrees, and during the day it was barely 20 degrees. Here now it is 31 degrees or something like that. I had 33 degrees on my drive here. So what am I going to do in the Mount Remarkable National Park? Well, there's a couple of apparently really cool hikes here, and I want to do some of them. And the first one we're going to do today is the Alligator Gorge hike, which is a loop trek. It's about 7 kilometers. They say you have to allow about 4 hours return. So let's get something to eat and then start the Alligator Gorge trek. That's impressive. Oh, jeez. It's definitely very untouched. I mean, there's no one else here, and in the car park there is no one as well. Crazy. I'm just really concerned about the snakes ever since I saw the last one. Because usually you just don't see them. I only saw it because it was hunting, I think, was a little lizard. Because the lizard went away and it went after the lizard, and this is how I saw it. But, I mean, it is very impressive. Look at this. It's bloody cool. You see this guy? It's a big monitor lizard. They're so cool. They're really intelligent as well. Like, you could have them as a pet. If you got them from when they're little, they actually remember your voice and they can learn commands and stuff like that. Look at him. That's a big boy. So I guess he's just leading the way now. He's literally just like walking the path that I want to walk. This is so cool. I love this. That's the kind of shit you really don't get when you live in, well, let's say most of Europe, at least in like the Western, very populated European countries. So we don't want to spook him, we just want to let him do his thing. But of course, at some point, if he keeps on with the speed that he does now, we gotta get past him. We just got to that lookout, and I'm pretty sure that looked damn cool. Oh, yes! So, there's another brown snake. It's really hard to see. It's so well camouflaged. Just went away from me. I'll try to zoom in as much as possible. You can only see a part of it. It's not massive, it's still kind of small, but it's definitely, I think, a brown snake, and you can just see a bit of the scales there.
Absolutely shattered from this hike in the heat, it was time for me to set up camp and catch some rest before the next day's hike.
Alright, let's go hiking. Well, it kind of cleared up, and now I feel like it's just fine weather to go hiking. I hope it's not gonna rain, but anyway, it's got my rain jacket with me if I need it. But yeah, it's about a 4 hours hike onto Mount Remarkable summit. There's 2 hikes. There's a northern route and there's a southern route, and I decided I was gonna take the northern route. It sounded more like good views on the way. I've no idea. I'm actually not even sure if I go the right way. But yeah, let's get up Mount Remarkable. I don't know if that's the summit or if the summit is actually way further and just like behind this kind of first ridge line or so. Guess we'll find out. Sun's out, I'm super motivated. Let's go. Now this is some cool stuff now. That's some good views over that plain. All our different colors. We have this blue, the blue of the rain coming down at the other end of the plain over those few mountains there, over that like slight elevation there, and then all the different greens and yellows. It's nice. Screeching in the background, by the way, is a cockatoo. Do you see that? Crazy. I don't think it's something like a plane or so, but it's definitely some kind of human structure that either came from up there and got taken with the avalanche or whatever. But yeah, it also very much looks like the remains of a wrecked plane or something. I don't think it is that, but interesting. So I was curious and I actually went down to whatever this wreckage thing looked like, and it is actually a plane wreckage. And I quickly googled it, and apparently this is the remains of a fatal crash that happened here in 1980 of a Piper aircraft, like a turboprop, like private plane, two propellers, two engines, two propellers. They got into a cloud and then just like kind of crashed here on this side of the mountain. It's pretty spooky, even though it's been 34 years, but you can still find pieces of that wreckage. I mean, it must have been much more, and some is probably buried under the avalanche field here, but spooky ass, especially when you think that somebody died in this crash as well. Crazy though.
The rest of the hike up to the summit was dominated by rain and clouds, so there were no views awaiting me at the summit. Luckily, it cleared up on the way down and on the drive towards Adelaide, where I spent my probably worst camp night next to the highway. Only to have something very different to experience the next day. Welcome to Hondor, a former German settlement that does everything it can to maintain its image as the most German town in Australia. Cuckoo clocks, Birkenstocks, beer and a whole lot of other things. Everything that is cliché German, be sure you can buy it here. While the town truly milks its image, it also has a genuinely interesting museum exhibit that is particularly appealing to German tourists. You can tell the town is actually proud of its German heritage, and while I was a little put off by the over-Germanizing that was going on, it was absolutely worth going there for just learning about its history. And then came Adelaide, which deserves a video on its own. All I'm gonna say is that it really surprised me, as people kept saying it was rather boring, which I don't understand at all. May it be for all its free attractions, or for the bunch of really good people I met here. My next stop was Victor Harbour, where I did the walk around Granite Island. Called the most visited park in South Australia, this island is littered with impressive granite boulders and some decent viewpoints. It's not gonna blow your mind compared to some other landscapes you find in Australia, but it's definitely worth a day trip from Adelaide.
So, after about 3 hours drive, I finally made it to Robe, and only from what I saw when I drove through it, it's so cute, it's beautiful, it's right next to the beach, it's an absolute like beach town. But just like Esperance and some other towns that I came across, it feels like it's deserted because everything is just like made for holidays, and if there's no holiday season, I think most of these houses around here, they're just empty. But look at this. Sweet! And you can actually drive onto the beach, and I'm just going to check out if I can do it with my crippled ass low-hanging Honda. We'll find out in due course if the Pajero can make it. If the Pajero can make it, we can make it too. No, we can actually not. I can already see that this is going to be tough.
Since driving on the beach wasn't an option, I just kept hanging at the beach for a while before starting a walk that was going to lead me to a certain lookout point and to the Rope Obelisk. Next to plenty of seafood, Rope's biggest attraction, I guess.
Look at this. Oh, there's probably heaps of snakes around here, but anyways. Such good colors. I love this. Found it. That's the lookout we were looking for. And that's the obelisk.
Rope's landscape wasn't the most mind-blowing. However, it was the first time seeing this kind of light blue, a bit murky water again that I hadn't seen since leaving my job in Broome, which gave me proper nostalgia and thus made my day trip to Rope somewhat special. If you have the money though, Rope offers an abundance of seafood and is regarded as one of the best places to eat seafood, especially lobster, in South Australia.
Alright, back in the car at the road marina, and it's about time to go up to Narut, which is about 115 kilometers, and I have about 115 kilometers range in fuel, but it's too expensive here. So let's try if we get with the very last drop to Narut to fuel up for a little bit cheaper, or if we get stranded on the way, which would be really uncomfy. But yeah, let's get on the road and find out about that.
I was gonna visit Narut as I heard it's home to some really interesting cave systems, which in itself are one of or even the most important fossil excavation sites for fossils from the Australian megafauna times.
So apparently, the place where I slept, that was only about 5 minutes drive from here, the Narut Caves National Park, and this is the Wanambi, I'm not sure, fossil center, and we're greeted by a giant, well, sloth, I guess, one of those prehistoric animals that lived here during the megafauna times. Cave tours, what does it say? Narut World Heritage Area. We are here, and we want to do the cave tours. Wanambi Visitor Center. So we gotta go there, and I reckon we gotta buy some tickets there. Thank you.
A drive like all the way to the Victoria Cave.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 minutes drive.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you head out to the left.
Yeah.
And you park there, and we will meet you there at 10.
Do you know what we're going to see today?
No.
Well, when we get to the third chamber, we're going to spend some time looking at all the fossils. A lot of extinct animals of Australia. Yeah, quite large animals. Yeah, so we call them all together megafauna.
Narut Caves became a paradise for paleontologists due to its interest in geography. However, to find out what makes Narut so special, better do the cave tours yourself. While the cave itself is nice but not overly spectacular, it's about this story, how it became one of the world's most important fossil excavation sites, with one of the highest fossil variety worldwide as well.
That was actually so interesting. I'm really so happy that I found out about like Narut Caves and that this whole thing even existed, because it's such a good place, it's such a jam. If you're around the area, definitely this is one of the places that is not on everybody's map for activities here in South Australia, and it's so good. Like the cave itself, I've seen more exciting, bigger, more fascinating cave structures and all these things in Vietnam and in Thailand last year. So I didn't come for the cave, but I came for the whole story about how they found all the fossils and how it's such a big variety of fossils and all the species that they found. Like, so just in this little patch that we went into, they found like 120 different species of megafauna and like also other animals. And price-wise, it's super reasonable. If you think of that, you have to kind of maintain this whole park, you have to maintain the caves, all these things. I think $38 for my cave tour, which was like 90 minutes almost, that's a good price. Like you can't argue with that. Like it's in a backpacker's budget. It's really so good. Like definitely come here if you're in the area. It's well worth the